Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Drac and I'll be your host today as I review Dead Space 2. First off, I'd like to point out that Dead Space 2 is not as action-oriented as most would have you believe. The game still retains its signature dread that the first game introduced. Dead Space 2 may seem less frightening simply because you know what you're up against this time. All that's changed is that the game has more set pieces than the first. Dead Space 2 once again throws you into the blood-soaked boots of engineer Isaac Clarke. 3 years after the events of the USG Ishimura accident, Isaac awakens in a hospital on the Sprawl, a massive, sprawling colony in space. Obviously, things on the Sprawl aren't going so well. That's where Mr. Clarke comes in. It seems Isaac has no memory of what happened after the ending of the first game, which is a nice move considering it confuses the player as much as it does Isaac. It's up to Isaac to once again survive the necromorph outbreak and learn more about the 3 years that have passed. Dead Space has always encouraged the dismembering of enemies. In fact, it's the most efficient way to take down necromorphs, the space zombies that are terrorizing the Sprawl. The game allows you to take down your undead assailants with a variety of sick weapons. The plasma cutter makes its return along with a few other Dead Space classics like the Force Gun, the Ripper, and the Flamethrower. Of course, what's a Dead Space game without a few new ways to eviscerate your enemies down to bloody stumps? Additions like the Javelin, a harpoon weapon that impales necromorphs to walls and electrocutes them, and the Detonator, a mine-laying powerhouse, make Dead Space 2 feel all the more violent. The controls in Dead Space 2 are tight. You'll notice this when you're dismembering limbs with pinpoint accuracy. Dead Space 2 also allows custom sensitivity, which was absent in the first game. Custom sensitivity really improves the gameplay as you'll be able to target more enemies that get the jump on you. Aiming in horror games doesn't have to feel clunky and awkward, thanks to Dead Space 2. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil. The atmosphere in this game is awesome. Since the Sprawl is basically a city in space, you'll constantly hear people screaming in terror as the necromorphs ravage the colony and its inhabitants. There's babies crying in the background, necromorphs grunting and gurgling from all directions, pieces of metal clinking and clanking just to make you nervous. Lots of good stuff like that. The game also seems a lot darker this time around. You'll constantly be aiming your weapon just to use the attached flashlight. Not everything is in clear sight like the first Dead Space. You really feel like things are lurking in the shadows. And believe me, they are. There's a particularly dreadful chapter in the game that is so atmospheric it had me gripping the controller tightly the whole time. What chapter? I'm not going to spoil things, but trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about once you reach the particular portion of the game. Dead Space 2 also has some really awesome zero-G segments. There's one portion of the game where you're flying around in space with no tethers or anything trying to fix solar panels. These moments in the game really stick out and are awesome set pieces. There are a few more necromorphs this time around in Dead Space 2. You've got the Crawler, which is basically a baby that crawls towards you and explodes. There's the Puker, the necromorph that spits bile at you to slow you down while other necromorphs can get up close and destroy you. The game also introduces the Stalker, the necromorphs that hunt in packs and use surprise tactics to ambush you. Just imagine that you're being stalked by a bunch of zombie velociraptors. It's basically the same feeling you get when you're up against these guys. Isaac can now talk. He's no longer the iconic silent protagonist from the first Dead Space. You might think that giving Isaac a voice would ruin his character at first, but it actually works out. Isaac isn't some hardcore space marine that feels like he can take on the world. He's an everyman that's been through a lot and knows his way around a plasma cutter. Personally, I find his character more interesting now that his vocal cords are working. Since Isaac can talk, this means he's able to converse with other characters in the game. You meet a few new people on the Sprawl and they add to the overall feeling of the environment. Remember, you're not on a derelict mining ship anymore. The Sprawl is a city with people living in it. The characters are interesting, and when you learn more about them through audio logs and text logs, they become even more interesting. If you remember the end events for Dead Space 1, then you'll definitely remember how Nicole attacked Isaac at the end of the game. Throughout Dead Space 2, you'll have to deal with apparitions of Nicole and mind games that she plays with you. It really messes up Isaac's perspective and he doesn't know what's wrong or right. And not to mention Nicole is pretty freaky. Overall, The story is pretty decent. You learn more about unitology and the EarthGov, and more importantly, what they want with the marker, an artifact that triggers the transformation of necromorphs. Dead Space 2 continues to build upon the enormous story crafted by the minds at Visceral Games. The game also includes a multiplayer mode, which is fun, but I don't think it'll keep too many gamers coming back after a certain amount of time. It's a nice bonus, and it allows you to take a break from the nerve-wracking single-player campaign. The modes basically consist of engineers working towards a goal while the necromorphs try to hinder their progress. It plays a lot like Left 4 Dead. The engineers usually need to defend or destroy an objective or hunt for pieces of machinery to win the match. As a necromorph, your job is to take the engineers out. You can play as a lurker, a spitter, a puker, or the pack. Each class has its own unique abilities, and it's up to you to decide what class your team needs most at the right moment. You also advance in rank and unlock upgrades regularly. Dead Space 2 is a great game that surpasses the original on all fronts. Visceral really outdid themselves with this one. Go out and buy this game if you like the original Dead Space. No questions about it. You'll love this game. If you're new to the Dead Space universe, I'd recommend playing the first game before going anywhere near Dead Space 2. Good job, Visceral Games. Now let's see you guys pull the same stunt with Dante's Inferno 2. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace.